It's really, really good to be here. I told Cindy when I first met her, first thing when I got out of my car and she was stocking the food pantry, what a joy it is to be here. Bill and I have talked about scheduling my visit for months and months and months, maybe even years, and we finally got a date, so I'm glad to be here. The mission of the Christian Church Foundation, as simply put as I know how to state it, is to help individuals and congregations establish permanent endowment funds as a reflection of their faith and to sustain the church's mission in perpetuity. That's it. So some of you have signed up to be in more conversation with me at lunch after church. That's great. Let me also say, if you didn't sign up, there will be enough food. We can multiply the loaves and fishes and all that. And so if you decide you want to come, please come. A second scripture reading in addition to the one Howard shared with us a little bit ago, from the 6th chapter of Matthew. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust consumes and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. More than 30 years ago, I was pastoring a congregation in El Paso, Texas. That's way out there. A friend of mine, a colleague, was invited to come out and be the keynote speaker for the area men's retreat one fall weekend. The campground was about 2.5 hours from El Paso, but he flew into the El Paso airport. I was charged with picking him up and driving him to the campground. That gave us a chance to catch up on our friendship, but also for him to rehearse his keynote address. The theme, the topic for that weekend was something new to me I'd never heard of. Perhaps you have by now. The Great Wealth Transfer. Some researchers, sociologists at Boston College had written a book. The title of the book, The Great Wealth Transfer. The basic premise, the thesis was that in the next 25 years, the oldest population, the oldest segment of our population, those whom Tom Brokaw and others defined as the greatest generation, those who survived the Great Depression and World War II, they would be passing away. And in the process, they would transfer their assets to the next generation. They had, through their research, determined that that generation in the next 25 years would transfer $52 trillion. Trillion with the T. Wow. I don't remember a lot else about the keynote. Maybe, what are your plans to transfer your assets and what are you going to leave to the church? Some of those kinds of questions. Then about 6 or 8 months ago, I was at a continuing education conference in Dallas. The keynote speaker, I don't remember his name. It wasn't terribly impressive, but the title of his presentation was, drum roll, anybody? The Great Wealth Transfer. This time, he's talking about, guess what? The next generation is going to pass away. That generation is the boomers. In the next 25 years, he predicted $79 trillion will pass from one generation to the next. Do you sense a theme going on here? I don't know what the next generation will be and how many trillion there will be, but I think it's going to be ongoing. And my question for us as people of faith, will there be a slice of the pie for the church? Not just Forest Park Christian Church, although that'd be nice, but for the wider church and the mission of the church, serving the poor and caring for those in need. And maybe doing that through the endowment funds of Forest Park Christian Church. Is philanthropy, is generosity a spiritual issue? Thank you. I love it. Yes. Not just yes, but yes. In the Gospels, more than 40% of Jesus' teachings, mostly in parables, but also the Sermon on the Mount and all of his teachings combined, more than 40% deal with money or possessions and what it is we're going to do with those things. I think our money and how it affects us and what we do with it, and generosity is indeed a spiritual issue. How we are spending and prioritizing our money, not just when we die if we're boomers or whatever generation we are, not just how we pass it on to the church and to ministries that we care about, but what we do with it today matters. Had a colleague, a friend of mine, again, when I was pastoring that same church in El Paso, serve as the guest preacher for me in our stewardship, consecration, commitment Sunday kind of service in October. He did something I thought was curious. It was cute. He's challenged everybody to pull out your checkbook and look in the check register over how you spent money in the last 30 days. How would that work today? Nobody carries checkbooks anymore. There may be one or two boomers that still have a checkbook. But I could say, get your phone out and pull out your banking app or your brokerage firm app. Look through your banking transactions of how you spent money over the last 30 days or so. That will speak to your priorities, I think. It will at least say something about what influences you or shapes you. Our mission statement at the Christian Church Foundation is to help people turn money into mission, to find ways to transform our resources to support the mission and ministry of the church. Not just any mission, but the gospel mission, the mission that Christ calls us to. You see, at the Christian Church Foundation, just like at Forest Park Christian Church, we don't have shareholders that we answer to. We answer to fellow Christians who are on the faith journey alongside us, walking with us, trying to inspire us and challenge us and call us out and give us the strength and courage to be more faithful. Tana and I were talking just before the service about the importance of legacy. How it is that we live each day to shape our legacy. Legacy is not just about the end of your life, but it's about how you live your life to create a legacy. A legacy speaks to what we believe is important in the world around us and how we live in such a way to reflect that. Do we care about those struggling with mental health issues? Do we care about the people who are unhoused and homeless? Do we care about food insecurity? Clearly y'all do. You have a food box and you do so much more beyond that. I saw something scrolling on the screens about food at a day shelter for the homeless. There are people in our society, in our world, who are able to do far more than we can financially. There are a lot of people that are filled with greed and just hoard more and more and more. But then every once in a while I'm inspired by the Mackenzie Scotts of this world who want to give from their abundance to make a difference. How can you make a difference? Mother Teresa said, when you're overwhelmed by need, remember, you may not be able to feed 100 people, but you can feed one. And if you feed one, and you feed one, and you feed one, then maybe together we feed 100. And then we make a difference together. Some people mistakenly believe that word philanthropy, it's a big word, and they think therefore it only is for people with big wealth, with significant wealth. Philanthropy, let me just instead say generosity, is something that we're all called to do. When I was pastoring at Bethany Christian Church, I had the person who was my predecessor in the role that I have now at the Christian Church Foundation. He came out on a weekend. He met with our trustees on Saturday. He preached on Sunday. He spoke at a luncheon in Hutton Hall, in the fellowship hall after church. The next day, Monday morning, Lila came into my office. Lila was on the search committee that called me to that church a number of years earlier. She was a very small, petite woman. She was quiet and unassuming, didn't say a lot. She came in with a check for $10,000. She said, maybe this isn't what you had hoped for. Maybe that's not enough, but it's a start. I want to help start our church's endowment fund. And so she did. I said, oh, Lila, your generosity is always enough. It's philanthropy just for the mega wealthy that can make really big donations, contributions? No, thank you. Thank you. I didn't plant that person, but I love it. About a year and a half ago, I met with Cynthia in Fort Worth. Cynthia had been a public school teacher her entire life, her entire career, I guess. She had just retired, never married, no children, had lots of dogs. She loved dogs. She said she wanted to leave her entire estate to the Christian Church Foundation, to a permanent fund that would benefit her congregation. We visited for at least a couple of hours in her living room with her college roommate and executor there. And I can't tell you how many times Cynthia kept apologizing to me that her estate probably wasn't enough. So much so that I was uncomfortable with her apologies. And I finally stopped her and I said, Cynthia, somebody's generosity is always enough. I don't define generosity by how many zeros are on the check, but how big your heart is. She loved the church, and she wants to make a difference. We laughed. We talked about the widow's mite. We talked about the parable of the mustard seed. You remember that one, right? Yeah. Cynthia wants to make a difference, and her gift will make a difference. I'm going to end with this story. Shortly after I started working at the foundation, my colleague Jim and I were in the office one day, and we got word that a fax had come into the fax machine in the community staff lounge. Anybody remember fax machines? So Jim and I hurried down to the staff lounge and picked off the paper off the fax machine. It was one page, crudely printed, almost like a kindergarten or something. At the top of the page, it said, "Urgent, Christian Church Foundation. I have $1.5 million I want to give you." That got our attention. It had his name and phone number. Anybody want to guess what we did? We called him. He lived in Central Texas, and over the course of the next few weeks, Jim and I made numerous trips down to visit him in his apartment. He was 89 years old. Paid close attention to the markets and predictions about the ups and downs of the market. He was a retired pastor who had served mostly very, very small rural churches throughout Oklahoma and East Texas. Never made much money, but he saved diligently and invested in the stock market. And he said, "I have a bad feeling about the market. I think it's about to crash." This was in 1999. Somebody remember the dot-com bust of 2000. He knew what he was talking about. We helped him fund a gift that would generate income payments to him for the rest of his life, and then leave a very, very generous gift to the church. He was planning to leave his entire estate. But one of the most meaningful things that I've done in receiving a gift was talk him out of it. He had one daughter, and they had been estranged for more than 20 years. mostly because he was so proud of his relationship with Jesus that he embarrassed her. Every time we would take Al out to lunch, he would speak to everybody in the restaurant. Hi, my name's Al. It's so good to see you today. Do you know Jesus? That was his standard line. We convinced Al to only give the Christian Church Foundation half of that $1.5 million before the market crashed and give the other half to his daughter. I was there the first time they met together after having been completely estranged for 20 years. They hugged and they cried. And she said, Daddy, I love Jesus, just not the same way you do. Today, his gift of love for his daughter and his gift for the church is blessing ministry some 20 years later. And it's continuing to grow and multiply. My question for you, my question for us today is simply, what is your heart calling you to do? Amen? Amen.